You ever notice how people used to have common sense? Real, sturdy, reliable common sense. The kind that didn't need a manual or a settings menu. You woke up, you knew what to do. You didn't need a reminder on your refrigerator to stay hydrated. You just drank water when you were thirsty. Imagine that level of genius, but somewhere along the way, we buried basic logic under layers of smart technology. We built machines to do the thinking for us, and now we're surprised that thinking became an optional feature. The funny thing is, the more smart stuff we invented, the dumber we started acting. We used to have dumb phones and smart people. Now it's the other way around. You can't even have a conversation anymore without someone checking their screen every 8 seconds, like they're waiting for divine instructions from the notification gods. Hold on. I can't decide whether I'm hungry or not until my app tells me my calorie limit. We got devices to count our steps, track our sleep, remind us to breathe. You need a phone to tell you to inhale? Folks, if you need to be reminded to breathe, the problem isn't your oxygen level, it's your brain battery running low. People used to walk outside, get a little fresh air, and call that exercise. Now they need a fitness band, an app, and a spreadsheet just to stretch. You can't even sit down anymore without your watch buzzing to tell you you've been sitting too long. It's like being nagged by a wrist-sized mother-in-law. And look at GPS. Once upon a time, getting lost was part of being alive. You pulled over, asked a stranger, maybe even discovered a diner you didn't know existed. Now, if the GPS freezes, people panic like they've been dropped in the Bermuda Triangle. We're calculating that one word is enough to send grown adults into existential crisis. You can see them yelling at their dashboard like it betrayed them. Turn left. Left! You didn't tell me that 10 seconds ago! We've traded logic for dependency. You don't have to think about directions, spelling, math, nothing. Just press a button, swipe a screen, and hope the algorithm knows more about your life than you do. People used to say, trust your gut. Now it's trust the app. Well, my gut never asked for a software update or crashed halfway through dinner. The irony is we call these things smart. Smart TV, smartphone, smart fridge, smart watch. The only thing that's not smart is the human standing in front of it. The refrigerator can tell you what's missing, but it can't stop you from eating the leftover cake at 3 a.m. The phone can tell you the weather, but it can't stop you from walking out in the rain because you were too busy texting. The watch can tell you your heart rate, but it can't explain why it spikes every time you see your credit card bill. And don't even start with smart homes. We used to have light switches, simple, reliable, flip on, flip off in a story. Now you got to have a Wi-Fi connection just to turn on the lamp. You say, turn on lights, and the house goes, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Next thing you know, you're arguing with a ceiling bulb at midnight. It's not a home anymore. It's a hostage situation run by artificial intelligence. You walk into someone's house and they say proudly, everything here is automated. Really? Because I just saw you manually restart your Wi-Fi router 3 times to make the coffee machine listen to you. There's something beautiful about a dumb machine that just works. No updates, no talking, no attitude. I miss toasters. You put bread in, you get toast out. Nobody ever said, hey, my toaster's glitching. Can you restart it? But the scariest part, people think they're getting smarter with all this help. No, they're just getting better at not knowing anything. You don't need to remember phone numbers, birthdays, recipes, or directions. Everything's in the cloud. But guess what? When the cloud goes down, so do you. You can't even call for help because your phone battery died and you don't remember your mom's number anymore. Back then, people had memory. You knew your neighbor's name, your best friend's number, your anniversary date, or at least had the decency to pretend. Now, people need an app to remember to call their parents, and they act like they invented empathy. Look, my phone reminded me to love someone today. Even reading has lost its logic. You give someone a manual, they scroll for the TL, DR, too long, didn't read. They don't want the instructions. They just want the shortcut. Common sense used to be the shortcut. You didn't need to look up how to fry an egg or tie your shoes. Now there's a tutorial for that with a 10-minute intro and 50 comments arguing about the right way to do it. The problem is we confused access to information with understanding. Just because you can Google something doesn't mean you know it. We're raising a generation that can look up every fact but can't connect any of them. They can find the capital of Peru in 2 seconds but don't know how to change a tire. And the ones who actually know how to change a tire, they're called old. Technology is supposed to make life easier, but it's making brains softer. We don't reason anymore, we just react. We don't decide, we follow suggestions. We don't live, we stream. People are streaming their lives like their own existence needs a buffering icon. You can't even eat without documenting it. Look, everyone, I had a sandwich. Good for you. Aristotle, truly an intellectual achievement. You'd think that with all this knowledge floating around, we'd have mastered logic by now. But no, we've managed to build satellites and still can't figure out how to plug in a USB cable correctly on the first try. You ever notice that? You try one side, doesn't fit. Flip it. Still doesn't fit. Flip it again. Now it fits. How can we split atoms but not design a rectangle that works both ways? And people call this progress. I call it digital babysitting. Every app's got a notification to keep you from thinking. Don't forget your meeting. Don't forget to drink water. Don't forget to stretch. Don't forget to breathe. When did we all become goldfish with calendars? If your phone has to remind you to exist, maybe it's time to step away from the charger and use the one thing nature gave you for free. Your head. We've been outsourcing logic for convenience, but convenience is the new cage. Every click and swipe gives away a little piece of your decision-making power. We used to say, I think, therefore I am. Now it's, I agree to terms and conditions, therefore I exist. You don't even read them. You just scroll and hit accept. For all you know, you just signed over your toaster to the government. And don't get me wrong, I love technology when it's useful. But useful doesn't mean necessary. The hammer's useful. The wheel's useful. Can't improve the wheel by adding fi to it. But somebody tried. They always try. Introducing the Smart Wheel 2.0, now compatible with Bluetooth. That's not progress, that's parody. You go to a coffee shop and see 10 people staring at their screens, ignoring each other, pretending to be social online. Common sense would tell you if you're surrounded by humans, talk to one. But no, that would require actual effort. People used to go out for coffee to wake up. Now they go out for Wi-Fi to log in. Even cars are turning against us. Remember when you had to drive the thing? Now the car drives you, parks itself, beeps if you breathe too close to a lane marker. Before long, it'll just drop you off and tell you to stay home because you're not qualified to operate your own vehicle. You'll sit there politely while your car lectures you about safety. That's not transportation. That's a power shift. What really happened is we replaced curiosity with convenience. When everything's automatic, your brain gets lazy. You don't need to figure out how things work because someone's already done it for you and charged you a subscription fee. But the human brain wasn't built to sit idle. It's like a muscle. Stop using it and it starts sagging. You've seen it happen. People can't make a simple choice without running a poll. Should I buy this shirt? Vote yes or no. You need democracy to dress yourself now. We used to rely on instinct, gut feeling, experience, trial, and error. Those things build civilization. Now, if the Wi-Fi goes out, civilization collapses faster than a cheap lawn chair. No internet, no logic. People forget how to function. They stare at their dark screens like cave people staring at the sky, waiting for fire to return. It's not that technology is evil. It's that we stopped questioning it. We let it replace wisdom with algorithms, decisions with defaults. We've made machines smarter so we could feel smarter. But all we've done is outsource our judgment. You don't need artificial intelligence when natural intelligence is already going extinct. And the sad, hilarious part, people defend this madness. But it's convenient! Yeah, so is wearing Velcro shoes forever, but at some point you should learn to tie a knot. Common sense isn't supposed to be replaced by comfort, it's supposed to guide it. If your gadget needs to tell you when to think, you're not living smarter, you're living supervised. One day, they'll look back at us the way we look back at ancient civilizations. These people had everything, electricity, medicine, machines, but somehow forgot how to use their own heads. There'll be exhibits. Here lies the last known manual thinker, buried under a pile of user agreements. Because that's where we're headed, a world full of smart devices and dumb decisions, where logic is outdated in basic sense as a collectible item. We don't need faster phones, we need slower brains, ones that stop long enough to think before clicking. So maybe the next time your gadget tells you what to do, tell it to take the day off. Trust your brain for a change, it might surprise you. Because if common sense really is dying, the least we can do is not let the machines write its obituary. You ever notice how school used to be about learning something and now it's just about surviving it? We don't have education anymore. We've got organized memorization with better lighting. It's like a factory line for conformity. You start at one end as a curious little kid who asks, why? 100 times a day, and by the time you come out the other end, all that's left is someone who can fill in bubbles with a number 2 pencil. They say school teaches you how to think. Really? When was the last time a teacher told you, don't believe me, go find out for yourself? No, that's not how it works. The rules are simple: memorize, repeat, forget, and never question the guy holding the chalk. They don't want thinkers. They want good listeners with decent handwriting. And it starts early. Kindergarten used to be a place where you learned to share your crayons and not eat the glue. Now it's a training ground for future employees. You've got 5-year-olds with homework, learning time management, building resumes. My kid just learned to tie his shoes. Oh, that's cute. Mine's coding. Then you move up. And every year they squeeze a little more curiosity out of you. By middle school, you've learned the system: raise your hand, don't question authority, and never color outside the lines, literally or figuratively. The bell rings, you move. The bell rings, you stop. It's not an education, it's obedience with a lunch break. And what's the big prize at the end? A diploma! A fancy piece of paper that says you completed the process. Not that you learned anything, but that you stayed long enough to get it. You can have a degree in critical thinking and still fall for a pyramid scheme if it's got a nice logo. They call it a system for a reason, because systems produce products, not people. You're not supposed to be unique. You're supposed to be well-rounded, which means shaved down until there's nothing sharp left. They don't want original minds. They want identical ones that can fill out forms on time. Ever sit in a classroom and think, when am I going to use this? Yeah, so did everyone else. You're learning to find the circumference of a circle while your parents can't balance a checkbook. You can recite the capitals of 200 countries, but can't figure out how to fix a dripping faucet. They'll teach you how to analyze Shakespeare's metaphors, but not how to read a loan contract. You'll graduate knowing what mitochondria do, but not what your taxes do, or worse, don't do. It's amazing. You spend 12 years in school, and nobody teaches you how to think for yourself. They teach you how to pass. You ask a question that's not in the textbook, and suddenly you're disruptive. You know what's disruptive? Blindly accepting everything you're told. But they don't give grades for curiosity, they give detention. They tell you to think critically, but only within the lines of the approved curriculum. Step outside, and suddenly you're a troublemaker. They don't want critical thinkers. They want polite parrots. Repeat the lesson, raise your hand, smile for the parent-teacher meeting, and wait for permission to go to the bathroom. By the time you get to adulthood, asking for permission is second nature. Can I take a break? Can I speak? Can I? Then college shows up. The big league of the education racket. That's where you really start paying for your programming. You think it's about expanding your mind, but it's about expanding your debt. College is like a subscription service for delayed disappointment. You pay thousands to learn things you could have Googled for free. And what do you get? A gown, a cap, and a handshake from a guy you've never met. Then they send you a bill that looks like the national debt. They call it higher education, higher than what the price is, maybe. You've got students graduating with enough debt to buy a small house and can't find a job that pays enough to rent one. They studied philosophy, psychology, or political science, and now they're applying that deep knowledge at the coffee shop. Would you like that existential crisis in a medium or large? And the schools, they don't care. They've got new buildings, fancy banners, and football teams that make more money than the history department. The whole thing's a business. Education wrapped in a diploma, shaped receipt. You're not a student, you're a customer, and they love repeat customers. Oh, you didn't find a job. Come back for a master's degree. Maybe the problem isn't the system, it's you. But the truth is, the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. It was never about teaching you how to think. It was about teaching you how to comply. They want employees, not philosophers. Workers who can follow procedures, fill forms, and smile through the nonsense. They don't need you thinking about why things are the way they are. That slows down productivity. You know how schools love to brag about discipline? That's just another word for obedience training. You sit still, stay quiet, do as you're told, and get rewarded with a letter on a paper. It's like Pavlov with homework. You learn early that compliance equals success. And when you finally hit the real world, that conditioning kicks in. You follow the boss, the clock, the crowd, because that's what you were taught to do. Even creativity got standardized. They tell kids, be creative, but make sure it fits the rubric. That's like telling a painter to use only approved shades of blue. You can't schedule creativity between second and third period. An art class, that's just therapy for people the math teacher couldn't fix. They don't nurture creativity, they time it. You have 45 minutes to express your soul, and don't forget to clean your brushes. And the tests, the tests, the sacred multiple choice, the holy scantron. Nothing says intelligence like coloring in circles with perfect precision. You can't explain your reasoning. You can't question the premise. You just pick A, B, C, or D like a trained seal. And heaven forbid you choose E, none of the above. Because in school, the answer is always there, even when it isn't. We measure intelligence by how well you follow instructions. You can fail a test for using logic the teacher didn't expect. Try explaining something in your own words and see how far that gets you. That's not what's in the book. Yeah, well, maybe the book's wrong. No, it can't be wrong. It's printed. Great, so is the phone book. And that's extinct. And grading is the oldest confidence trick in the game. They convince you that letters on a page define your worth. You get an A, you're a genius. You get a C, you're a disappointment. But nobody tells you that in real life, the guy who got straight A's might end up working for the kid who barely passed. Because grades measure obedience, not brilliance. Some of the smartest people I've ever met couldn't stand school because they were busy actually learning. Teachers, bless them, are trapped in this too. Most of them start with passion. They want to make a difference. But the system squeezes it out of them like toothpaste. They've got to hit quotas, follow curriculums, fill reports. They can't teach you to think. There's no checkbox for that. You ask a good question, they sigh, not because they don't care, but because they know it's not on the test. And then when you finally graduate, They hand you that diploma with pride, as if it's a golden key to the universe. You did it. Yeah, I did it. I sat still for 16 years and learned how to play the game. I learned how to memorize, how to obey, how to pretend. But the minute life gives you a pop quiz, no notes, no warning, suddenly none of that training helps, because life doesn't grade on a curve. It grades on how fast you adapt. We live in a world that worships credentials and ignores competence. A piece of paper means more than a working brain. You could be a genius at fixing problems, but if you don't have the right degree, they won't even let you in the door. Meanwhile, a guy with a diploma in business strategy can't strategize his way out of a wet paper bag. But hey, he's certified, and parents buy into it. You have to go to college to be successful. That used to mean something when college cost as much as a used car, not a mortgage. Now you're expected to take on debt before you even have income, and they call it investing in your future. Sounds like a great plan if your future involves paying interest for the rest of your natural life. They love to say education is power. No, knowledge is power. Education is just the delivery system. And right now it's malfunctioning. It's like trying to fill a swimming pool with a teaspoon. We've got information everywhere, but wisdom's still on back order. And it's not that kids are dumb. They're just trained wrong. You ask a kid what they want to be, and they say, I don't know. Of course they don't. They've been taught to ask for permission to think. You tell them to dream big, but punish them when their dreams don't fit the curriculum. Schools used to prepare people for life. Now they prepare people for tests. But life doesn't come with answer keys or bonus questions. The best things you'll ever learn don't happen in a classroom. They happen in curiosity, mistakes, and real conversations. Things like how to listen, how to question, how to doubt, how to change your mind. Those are lessons that make a human, not a graduate. The truth is the education system is outdated. It was built for a time when people needed to fit into factories, not ideas, sit in rows, follow bells, do the same work at the same time. It was perfect training for an assembly line. And here we are, decades later, still producing assembly line minds. What the world needs now isn't more degrees. It's more discernment. People who can separate fact from noise, truth from trend, purpose from paycheck. Common sense isn't taught because it can't be tested, but it can be practiced if we stop worshiping credentials long enough to start using our heads again. So maybe it's time to admit it. School doesn't make you smart. Paying attention does. Asking questions does. Failing and trying again does. Common sense grows where curiosity lives, not where it's graded. Because if the education system keeps producing degrees instead of thinkers, we'll end up with a world full of well-educated fools, people who can read every word but understand nothing. And that, my friends, is the biggest test humanity's still failing. You ever notice how feelings have become the new national sport? Everybody's feeling something all the time. Feeling angry, feeling inspired, feeling offended, feeling about feeling. We used to have thoughts, opinions, and logic. Now we've got emotions with marketing departments. It's like people turn their hearts into full-time publicists. I'm not sure what's true, but I feel like it is, and that's good enough. There was a time when people argued with facts, debated with evidence. Now they debate with moods. I just don't feel like that's right. Well, guess what? Gravity doesn't care how you feel. The universe doesn't check your emotional forecast before it drops the apple. Facts don't come with mood lighting, and it's not that feelings are bad, they're human. But when feelings start doing the thinking, that's when civilization begins to sound like a therapy session hosted by toddlers. Everything's about comfort, validation, approval. People don't want the truth anymore. They want a soothing version of it that hugs them on the way down. You can't even disagree politely. Disagreement used to mean conversation. Now it means conflict. Say the wrong thing and suddenly you're toxic. Not wrong, toxic. Like a bad sandwich that gives people emotional food poisoning. You don't even need to be malicious. All you need is an opinion with a sharp edge. And suddenly you're public enemy number one. Because somebody's feelings got a paper cut, we become emotional first responders. Somebody says something, we rush to react. How dare you? How dare they what? Have a thought. We treat ideas like viruses now. If someone expresses a viewpoint we don't like, instead of questioning it, we quarantine it. Don't listen to them. They make me uncomfortable. Well, congratulations. Discomfort is where learning lives. People used to say, let's talk about it. Now it's, let's tweet about it. Emotions used to be personal, something you process privately. Now they're public currency. Everyone's broadcasting their feelings 20/47 like emotional weather reports. Feeling sad today, send hearts. Feeling empowered, share this post. You're not a person anymore, you're a channel, and your feelings are the programming. It's gotten so bad that people confuse emotional reaction with moral compass. If it makes me feel bad, it must be wrong. No, sometimes it just makes you uncomfortable because you're thinking for the first time all week, growth hurts. That's why they call it growing and not napping. And logic. Logic got kicked out of the conversation for being too blunt. That's harsh. No, it's reality. Reality doesn't care about tone. It doesn't sugarcoat itself just because you brought a fragile ego to the discussion. You don't get to vote on the laws of nature. You don't get to cancel physics because it offends your sense of balance. We've built a world where emotions are the new truth. It doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. If enough people feel it, it becomes real. You can almost hear reason packing its bags and leaving. Sorry, folks, my job's done here. Call me when you remember what evidence looks like. And the media loves it. They don't sell news anymore. They sell emotional hits. Outrage, fear, sympathy, it's all one big soap opera. Every story is designed to make you feel something before you have time to think about it. Coming up next, something that'll make you furious. Stay tuned. Nobody wants to be informed. They want to be inflamed. You ever try to have a calm discussion with someone these days? You start with a simple statement, and suddenly they're ready to deal with feelings. I feel attacked. You weren't attacked. You were asked a question. But we live in a world where every disagreement feels like an insult. People don't listen to understand. They listen to reload. It's like emotional fast food, cheap, addictive, and bad for your long-term health. We consume outrage like it's entertainment. Did you hear what he said? Did you see what she posted? Everyone's dining on secondhand anger, served cold with a side of anxiety, and we're shocked that nobody's calm anymore. You turn on the TV and it's just people yelling at each other. Every topic, every time. Nobody's thinking. They're performing emotions like it's a competition. Who can be the most outraged in under 60 seconds? The winner gets a book deal and a hashtag. The loser has to apologize on camera. And don't forget we commercialize feelings too. There's a product for every mood. Feeling lonely? Buy this. Feeling ugly? Wear this. Feeling insignificant? Share this. The whole market runs on emotional insecurity. It's not about solving problems. It's about keeping you in a permanent state of almost okay. That way you keep buying hope in monthly installments. Even our communication change. People don't talk. They react. You say something, and instead of thinking, they go straight for the emotional shorthand. That's offensive. Okay, but is it true? Doesn't matter. It hurts. Great. So the new rule is truth is optional, comfort mandatory. You can't build a civilization on that. You can barely build a group chat. And what's with this obsession over being heard? Everybody wants to be heard, but nobody wants to listen. It's like a choir where everyone's singing their solo. You ask someone to consider another viewpoint, and they say, you're invalidating my experience. No, I'm just questioning your conclusion. Your experience is real. Your logic might not be. But try explaining that to someone whose ego has its own security system. It's funny, we used to tell kids, use your head. Now we tell adults, follow your heart. The problem is the heart doesn't do math. It doesn't compare evidence. It doesn't check sources. It just beats and believes. The heart's great for love, not so great for navigation. But we've built an entire culture on it. You can't even advertise without emotional manipulation. Every commercial's got sad music, slow motion, and someone whispering about purpose. Buy this soap and feel seen. Somewhere along the way, we decided that emotions equal authenticity. If you're calm and logical, people think you don't care. You're so cold. No, I'm thinking. Thinking doesn't require tears or background music, but people want drama. Logic's too quiet, emotions got better ratings, and the education system feeds right into it. Remember when debate class was about reasoning? Now it's about rhetoric, how to sound right, not how to be right. Students learn how to argue their feelings instead of checking their facts. We're breeding performers, not problem solvers, and it shows. You see it everywhere. Politics, entertainment, even relationships. Everything's emotional theater. You don't have to be correct anymore. You just have to sound passionate. If you cry on cue, the crowd claps. If you stay calm, they boo. We reward noise and punish nuance. That's why logic's in hiding. It doesn't trend well. People used to say, don't take it personally. Now that phrase is extinct. Everything's personal. You could say the sky's blue, and someone will say, what are you implying? I'm implying the sky's blue. But no, you hurt their emotional landscape. Suddenly you're in an argument about inclusivity in the color spectrum. We've turned empathy into a performance. You can't just care quietly anymore. You have to show it, post it, hashtag it, market it. Look, everyone, I'm feeling compassion right now. It's emotional virtue signaling. Feelings as fashion accessories. Doesn't matter if you mean it. It just has to look sincere in good lighting. And when people run out of real feelings, they start borrowing them. Outrage on behalf of strangers, guilt they don't understand, sympathy they don't act on. Everyone's emotionally overdrafted, too many withdrawals, not enough deposits. It's no wonder we're exhausted. You can't sprint on empathy all day without running out of logic. Even language has changed. Words don't mean what they used to. Triggered used to mean something happened. Now it means something might happen emotionally. Safe space used to mean shelter during a storm. Now it means shelter from ideas. We padded the world for our feelings and forgot that discomfort is how you grow. You can't bubble wrap reality. It's ironic. The more sensitive we've become, the less compassionate we act. Because real compassion takes understanding, and understanding takes thinking. It's easy to feel bad. It's hard to fix things. Feeling without thought is just noise, like applause in the dark. It feels good, but it doesn't light anything up. People mistake reacting for caring. Someone posts bad news, and the world rushes to comment, cry, or condemn, but nobody follows through. We live in the era of instant outrage and zero follow-up. I'm angry! Okay, now what? I don't know. But I'm definitely angry. And logic sits quietly in the corner, sipping coffee, wondering when it'll be invited back to the discussion. But it won't, because logic doesn't flatter anyone. It asks hard questions. It forces accountability. It says, maybe your feelings are valid, but your conclusion isn't. And nobody wants to hear that, especially when they've built their whole identity on being emotionally correct. We used to value calm people. Now we call them indifferent. We used to admire stoicism. Now we label it repression. We've pathologized composure. If you're not visibly upset, people think you don't care. Well, maybe caring doesn't always look like crying. Sometimes it looks like solving a problem. And you can see this emotional inflation everywhere. People can't even handle minor disagreements. You're invalidating my truth. Since when did truth come in personal sizes? It's not a sweater. Truth doesn't change just because it doesn't match your feelings. But hey, in a world that sells participation trophies for opinions, who needs reality checks? We built this emotional economy on validation, and now we're broken reason. Everyone's walking around like open emotional tabs, waiting for someone else to cover the bill. But logic doesn't take feelings as payment. You can't argue your way out of facts with volume or tears. You can't change the outcome just because you're uncomfortable with it. Feelings can guide you, sure. They tell you when something matters. But they can't replace thinking. You need both. You can't drive a car with just the gas pedal. You need a steering wheel too. But society stomped on the gas and threw the wheel out the window. Now we're just speeding down the road of outrage, honking our horns, yelling, I feel, out the window. You want to know why common sense is vanishing? Because thinking takes time and feelings are instant. We picked the shortcut. Thinking requires effort, patience, humility. Feelings require nothing but impulse. And we love impulse. It feels alive. But living on feelings alone is like trying to build a house out of weather. You can't. It changes every minute. So maybe it's time to slow down. Let the feelings sit. Let the thoughts catch up. You don't have to react to everything that crosses your path. You can pause, process, and decide. That's what separates awareness from alarm, the ability to feel and think. That's what makes us human, not hashtags with heart emojis. Because a world that feels everything but understands nothing isn't compassionate. It's chaotic. And if we keep choosing emotion over reason, we'll end up with a society that's always loud but never right. The world doesn't need more feelings. It needs more people who can think about them. And that, my friends, is the only way we stop confusing sensitivity with sense. You ever notice how common sense used to be, well, common? It was like the air. Everybody had it, nobody bragged about it, and it didn't need a manual. Then somewhere along the line, we treated it like an endangered species. Now you can't even find it in the wild. You got to go to a museum, stare at it behind glass, and whisper, wow, they used to think like that. We've turned logic into archaeology. Common sense today is like those old rotary phones. People know they existed, but if you handed them one, they'd spin the dial like it's a fidget toy. You tell somebody, use your head, and they go, I need an app for that. We got technology smarter than people, and people dumber than furniture. There's a toaster out there that has more decision-making power than most adults. You push one button, it knows what to do. Meanwhile, people are standing in front of microwaves going, how long should I heat water? I miss the days when sense came free with every human brain. You were born, you cried, you learned hot stove bad. That was common sense. Now people need YouTube tutorials titled, Why You Shouldn't Pet a Cactus. We're evolving backwards, one search bar at a time. You know something's off when people ask Siri for life advice. Siri's tired, man. She's been telling people, maybe just think for yourself since 2009, but no one listens. If common sense were a product, it'd be discontinued. Too many returns, not enough use. Defective brains, refund requested. And if it were still sold, you know they'd make 3 versions, Common Sense Basic, Common Sense Pro, and Common Sense Premium with monthly subscription. Only $9.99 a month for the ability to notice the obvious, and people would buy it. They'd brag too. Oh, I upgraded to Common Sense Plus. It comes with built-in empathy and the ability to tell left from right. Meanwhile, the rest of us are still trying to figure out why people eat laundry pods. And have you seen warning labels lately? That's proof common sense went extinct. Do not iron clothes while wearing them. Someone somewhere had to be reminded of that. Caution, hot coffee is hot. Really? We used to just know that. Now it's breaking news. There's a label on a bag of peanuts that says, contains peanuts. I hope so. What were you expecting? Origami. They put remove child before folding stroller. You know that happened. Somewhere, somebody looked at the folded stroller and thought, well, the kid's compact now. We used to rely on logic. Now we rely on instructions. There's a manual for everything. Common sense got outsourced to the fine print. People used to read a sign like wet paint and go, better not touch that. Today they go, is it really wet? and test it with their hand. Then they go, yup, still wet. Congratulations, Sherlock, you've solved the mystery of the dripping wall. The only thing missing is the theme music. Common sense became optional when people started confusing feeling smart with being smart. Everyone's got opinion and they treat it like evidence. I feel like gravity's a hoax. Oh, good. Tell that to the Apple. We've got people arguing with physics because it hurt their feelings. And when you ask them for proof, they say, I saw a meme. Oh yeah, the modern library of wisdom, Facebook memes, the new Encyclopedia Britannica. Common sense used to be your internal compass. Now it's Google Maps and it still gets lost. And we're proud of it. We call it individual thinking. No, it's not. It's individual nonsense. People used to test ideas before spreading them. Now they spread them before thinking. They share everything, ideas, emotions, germ-filled. There's more sense in a houseplant than in half the conversations happening at a dinner table. At least a plant knows when to stop taking in Kyoto. If you look closely, you can see how society turned stupidity into a hobby. It's recreational now. People go online like it's an Olympic event, competing for who can miss the point fastest. They don't want answers. They want attention. And attention doesn't require sense. It requires noise. That's why common sense can't compete. It's quiet, doesn't trend. Nobody posts. Just realize yelling doesn't solve problems. No, they'd rather post, here's a 3-minute rant about my toaster being racist. Common sense quietly left the room while we argue with our appliances. You can almost imagine future generations digging through our junk and finding a dusty book titled Common Sense. They'll flip through it like it's ancient scripture. Look, it says here, don't spend more than you earn. And the other one goes, wow, these people were geniuses. Meanwhile, they'll be paying $7 for water in a bottle labeled organic. They'll call it vintage hydration. And the government, the media, corporations, they all help bury common sense under paperwork and advertising. Everything's got fine print and hidden charges. Want to cancel something, you'll need 3 passwords, a blood sample, and a fax machine from 1987. Common sense would say, just let people stop paying. But nope, not profitable. Profit always beats logic. If they could charge you for breathing, they'd sell air and flavors. No available in vanilla oxygen, and people would buy it. It's gluten-free, they'd say proudly. You know what else killed common sense? Marketing. We convinced ourselves everything's special. Every coffee is artisanal. Every opinion is brave. Every mistake is or journey. You can't just be wrong anymore. You're discovering your truth. No one ever says, I messed up. They say, I'm living my authentic narrative. Yeah, your narrative sucks, man. It's called accountability. We used to have that. It went extinct around the same time people started naming their children after fruit. Common sense used to tell you that not everything needs to be reinvented. Now people want innovation for the sake of it. You see forks with Bluetooth, socks with GPS, a toothbrush that plays music. We used to brush our teeth in silence and reflect on our day. Now we dance to electronic beats while polishing enamel, and we call it progress. If cavemen had our mindset, they'd have tried to reinvent fire every week. Yeah, but this one's Fire 2.0. It's scented, and you can't help but laugh because it's also proudly ridiculous. People brag about being logical but believe horoscopes written by interns. They say, I don't believe in science, but I trust a quiz that says my spirit animal is a dolphin. Common sense says, hey, maybe not. But logic has left the chat. Even the way we talk has lost sense. We say things like literally dying when we're not even coughing. I can't even what? We've reduced expression to fragments. Common sense used to say, finish your thought before opening your mouth. Now we're halfway through a sentence before remembering what language we speak. People go, you know what I mean? No, I don't, and neither do you. And don't get me started on customer service calls. Remember when you could just talk to a human? Now it's an automated maze of nonsense. Press 1 for frustration, press 2 for despair. By the time you reach a person you've forgotten why you called, common sense would say, make it easier for customers. But no, they studied efficiency by removing the humans entirely. You used to get help, now you get a survey about the help you didn't get. Common sense also took a hit when people stopped questioning nonsense. We've got folks who believe every slogan they read. Natural, wholesome, farm, fresh, from a box that hasn't seen a farm since Noah built his ark. People forget that marketing isn't truth. It's theater. It's storytelling with price tags. Common sense would say if it needs a commercial, it's probably not necessary, but we buy it anyway because the commercial had a puppy and a guitar. You ever notice how we can detect fake money, fake art, fake news, but not fake logic, because fake logic feels good. It's smooth. It agrees with you. Real logic makes you uncomfortable, and people hate that. They want affirmation, not revelation. So they avoid common sense like it's a bad smell. Don't tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm unique. Sure, you're unique, like every other person who thinks they're the exception to gravity. And here's the twist. The less common sense people have, the more confident they are. It's amazing. The people who know the least talk the loudest. The truly logical ones, they're in the corner muttering, I can't believe I share DNA with these people. It's the Dunning-Kruger parade out there. Everybody thinks they're leading the float. I think someday they'll have common sense clinics. You'll walk in, get diagnosed, sir, you're suffering from advanced stupidity. And they'll prescribe you silence, 2 doses a day, take it with humility. You'll see infomercial, has your reasoning gone soft? Try Sense8! Clinically proven to restore brain function. Side effects may include thinking before speaking and mild embarrassment over your past behavior. Maybe schools will reintroduce it as a subject. All right, class, today we're learning practical reasoning 101. Lesson 1, don't stick metal in electrical outlets. And the kids will be like, why? And the teacher will just point to the smoking outlet in the corner. Common sense used to be learned by experience. You fell, you got up, you learned. Now it's a TikTok challenge. And look, I get it. People are busy, life's complicated. But we made it worse by pretending every problem needs a product, every thought needs validation, every action needs a policy. Sometimes the simplest answer really is the right one. You don't need a think tank to know not to text while crossing traffic. You don't need a focus group to decide that maybe, just maybe, being nice works better than being a jerk. It's not rocket science. It's barely bicycle science. Maybe one day people will realize common sense isn't something you buy, follow, or outsource. It's something you practice, like stretching. You use it or lose it. And judging by how things look, we've lost it, wrapped it in bubble wrap, and called it personal growth. The future will probably sell common sense starter kits in stores, batteries, is not included. Comes with a small manual that says, think first. And people will still call tech support asking how to use it. Common sense won't die suddenly. It'll fade quietly, replaced by expert opinions, trends, and algorithms. It'll live on in nostalgia, like cassette tapes and handshakes. And one day, somebody will stumble across an old video or a dusty book and say, man, they used to say some pretty smart things back then, and they'll nod, not realizing that all we were doing was pointing out the obvious. Because that's all common sense ever was, the obvious that everyone forgot. The truth that didn't need credentials, the logic that didn't need proof. It wasn't rare, it wasn't fancy, it just worked. But somewhere along the way, we got too clever for our own good. We traded wisdom for Wi-Fi, patience for instant results, and thinking for scrolling. And maybe one day, when we're done outsmarting ourselves, when all the apps crash and the batteries die, we'll sit in the quiet, look around, and realize that the simplest thoughts were the truest ones. Maybe we'll rediscover that small spark of logic that doesn't need a signal or a screen, just a brain and a heartbeat. Because when everything else breaks down, the only thing that really keeps the world running is the one thing we keep forgetting to use, plain old common sense.